Over in the state of Iowa, a woman has just been found guilty and sentenced to prison for having committed over 50 counts of voter fraud across 2 separate elections in the year 2020. Let me break down for you exactly what she did, why she did it, as well as ultimately how she got caught. To start with, this man here is named Jeremy Taylor. He was a congressional candidate in the state of Iowa back in the year 2020. And the woman standing next to Jeremy is his wife, Ms. Kim Taylor. And evidenced by the number of photos there are of her on the official Facebook page for the campaign, well, it's pretty clear that Jeremy's wife was rather involved in his congressional bid. She was meeting with people, she was shaking hands, taking photos, and so on. However, it turns out that Kim was doing a lot more than that, and that actually, during the 2020 election cycle, Ms. Kim Taylor was stuffing the ballot box for her husband. Now, to give you a bit of background here, the 4th Congressional District over in Iowa is a Republican stronghold. So in practice, whoever clinches the Republican nomination essentially wins the actual election. And so, starting with the 2020 Republican primary, Ms. Kim Taylor began taking extraordinary steps to ensure that her husband won the nomination. Here is how the Justice Department explained what they uncovered during the course of their investigation. Quote, Kim Fung Taylor engaged in ballot fraud by causing absentee ballots to be fraudulently requested and cast. Taylor submitted or caused others to submit dozens of voter registrations, absentee ballot request forms, and absentee ballots containing false information. Taylor completed and signed voter forms without voters' permission and told others that they could sign on behalf of relatives who were not present. Now, interestingly, even with this creative approach, her husband still wound up losing the Republican primary. But this couple did not give up hope, because in the general election, Mr. Jeremy Taylor ran for the position of Woodbury County Supervisor. And according to the Justice Department, his wife, she used the same ballot fraud tactics in the general election as she did in the Republican primary, with the only difference between the two being that her husband actually wound up winning the general election. In the year 2020, Mr. Jeremy Taylor got elected to the County Board of Supervisors. Good for him, except for the fact that the tactics used to get him elected wound up getting uncovered. And in regards to the specifics of how this voter fraud scheme actually worked, well, according to federal investigators, what Ms. Kim Taylor would do is go into the local Vietnamese community and help people to vote for her husband. Here is how the indictment broke it down. Quote, Kim Taylor accomplished getting illegal votes for her husband through a variety of means, including by approaching residents of the Vietnamese community in Sioux City, Iowa, who had limited ability to read and understand English, and offering to help them vote. Now, just to pause here for a quick moment, in and of itself, this is not a crime. Helping people vote is perfectly fine. However, it's the details of how she helped these people that crossed the line. Quote, prior to both the primary and general elections in 2020, Kim Taylor visited numerous households within the Vietnamese community in Woodbury County, encouraging residents to fill out voter registration forms and absentee ballot request forms that she brought with her for each election. In some instances, Kim Taylor either assisted the residents with filling out the forms or filled them out herself. Kim Taylor then took the forms with her and either mailed them to the Woodbury County Auditor's Office or placed them in one of the county's drop boxes. Ms. Kim Taylor then went significantly further. Quote, Kim Taylor also signed voter registration forms and absentee ballot request forms for residents who were not present at the time or told residents who were there that they could sign the forms for their other family members. Now, it really is worth noting that every one of these forms has an affidavit that's written at the bottom, which says something along the lines of, under penalty of perjury, I'm the one who's signing this form, and my name is listed on the top of the form. And so, obviously, signing a form like that for someone else is patently illegal. However, because a lot of these people did not speak English, and because Ms. Kim Taylor conveniently did not translate that part of the affidavit, these people had no idea that what was taking place inside their own house was actually against the law. Furthermore, besides just helping these people fill out these absentee ballot forms, once the actual physical mail-in ballots arrived at the house, Ms. Kim would oftentimes return to get those ballots filled out the right way. Quote, prior to both the primary and general elections in 2020, Kim Taylor visited numerous households within the Vietnamese community in Woodbury County, encouraging residents to fill out the absentee ballots that they had received in the mail. In some instances, Kim Taylor voted the absentee ballots and signed the accompanying affidavits for residents who were not present at the time or told residents who were there that they could sign the forms for their other family members. Which I'll pause again to reiterate, this is obviously not true. You are not allowed to sign a ballot like this on behalf of anyone, including your family members. The indictment continues, quote, Kim Taylor then took the ballots with her and delivered them to the Woodbury County Auditor's Office, causing the casting of votes in the names of residents who had no knowledge of and had not consented to the casting of their ballots. Now, in terms of how these interactions actually played themselves out right there in people's homes, well, during the trial itself, a witness was called to the stand and he told the court about what was happening behind closed doors with Ms. Kim Taylor. Quote, this witness, a man in his 80s who testified that he survived more than a decade in prison in communist Vietnam, said he couldn't read, write, or speak English very well, and that whenever election materials came to his home, he just let Kim Taylor take them. Then there was another witness who was called to the stand by the prosecutors who was, quote, the son of a Vietnamese woman who said he registered to vote only to find out he had already submitted a ballot. But, according to the prosecution, that ballot was actually filed by his mother at the direction of Kim Taylor in order to help her husband get elected. Furthermore, this young man's mother also gave her testimony saying that, quote, she had no idea it was illegal to sign election materials on her son's behalf and that in the end, she really only wanted to vote for former President Donald Trump. In fact, she testified she didn't know Kim Taylor's husband, Jeremy Taylor, was even on the ballot. She also said she asked Kim Taylor if her actions were legal, and Kim Taylor told her that they were. And so this was what was happening behind the scenes during the 2020 election over in Woodbury County, Iowa. In total, Ms. Kim Taylor was charged with 52 counts of voter fraud, including 26 counts of providing false information in registering and voting, 23 counts of fraudulent voting, as well as 3 counts of fraudulent registration. And back in November of last year, Ms. Kim Taylor was found guilty on all 52 charges. Now, each one of those charges actually carries a maximum penalty of 5 years in prison, meaning at the very extreme end, Ms. Kim Taylor was facing upwards of 260 years behind bars. However, that is not what happened. Instead, after she was convicted in November, the prosecutors were pushing to have her sentenced to somewhere between 18 to 24 months behind bars. But just earlier this month, on April 1st, the judge overseeing this case, he sentenced Ms. Taylor to only a fraction of that time, giving her only an 8-month-long sentence. However, it's worth noting she will not be in prison for 8 months. Only 4 months will be served in prison, while the other 4 will be served at her house in home confinement. Furthermore, besides the 8 months, she's also ordered to pay a penalty of $5,200. And in terms of the rationale for why she was given such a light sentence, especially when you compare it to what the maximum was and even what the prosecutors were pushing for, well, here's what the judge said as a justification. Quote, the judge said that sentencing her to less than the guidelines was warranted because of mitigating evidence, including her lack of criminal record, the good she's done for the community, and her caretaking role to her multiple kids. The judge added that Kim Taylor is unlikely to reoffend because now that she's a convicted felon, she won't be able to vote. All right, just to pause here for a super quick moment, I'd like to introduce today's sponsor, Entera Skincare. Look, if you are really keen to have your skin look as young and as radiant as possible, well, their products are very good. They're based in science and they're infused with peptides, which help to roll back the clock on all these different problems, wrinkles, crow's feet, dark circles, and just generally, they make your complexion look rejuvenated. They've got the Platinum Restore Serum, which is like an elixir protecting your cells from different free radicals, as well as pushing back the signs of aging. They've got the Sapphire Lux Firming Serum, which tightens up and firms the skin. They've got a moisturizer that's infused with peptides, which not only hydrates the skin, but also repairs it. And they've got the Ageless Bundle, which is everything I've mentioned so far in one convenient package. And best of all, to our viewers, you can use promo code ROMAN to save 10% off your entire order. And so check them out. They're show watchers. They support the channel. They support getting the facts out to the wider populace. And so let's support them right back. Just head on over to enteraskincare.com/RomanB and use promo code ROMAN to save 10% off. I'll also throw the link to their website. You can find it down in the description box below. Now, at this point, you might be asking yourself, okay, so this was the wife, but what about the husband? He was obviously the beneficiary of this whole voter fraud scheme. Were charges brought against him? And the answer to that is no. No charges were brought forth against Mr. Jeremy Taylor. Although it is worth mentioning that one of the witnesses during the trial testimony, he said that Jeremy was waiting in the car while his wife was inside collecting the election materials. However, in the end, the feds were not able to find enough evidence to charge him with any sort of a crime, and therefore no charges were brought forth against him. Although it appears that he's now walking away from this incident totally scot-free. Quote, after Kim Taylor's conviction, Jeremy Taylor resigned as the Woodbury County Board of Supervisors vice chair. He is still a board member and has said he will finish the remainder of his term, but that he won't run for re-election. And so that is the situation playing itself out over in Iowa. And actually, I'd love to know your thoughts. Do you think that the sentencing was too light, given the number of charges? Or do you think that, given the mitigating circumstances, it was just right? And also, what do you make of the case itself? Do you think that since Ms. Kim Taylor was ultimately caught, that it means our system works, since people who commit voter fraud are caught by the authorities? Or do you think that the number of people who are actually caught is just a small fraction of the people who are actually committing these sorts of crimes? I'd love to know your thoughts. Please leave them in the comments section below. I'll be reading through them tonight as well as over the weekend. And also, if you'd like to actually read through the indictment paperwork for yourself, I'll throw a PDF version of it. You can find it down in the description box below if you're the type of person that likes to dig into the weeds. And then lastly, if you enjoyed today's content and you're just thinking to yourself, man, I love this content, I just wish Roman would publish more episodes every single week. Well, you're in luck, because I do. Over on Epoch TV, our awesome no-censorship video platform, I publish anywhere between 1 to 3 exclusive episodes of Facts Matter every single week, usually on topics that are unfortunately too spicy for here on YouTube. And so if you'd like access to those exclusive episodes every single week, including a huge backlog from the last 3 years, well, now's a great opportunity to check it out because the Epoch Times is running a phenomenal promotional sale. Just 25 cents a week for 6 full months, which if you do the math, works itself out to just be a single $1 a month. Although someone in the comments recently mentioned that there's 52 weeks in a year, and so it winds up being something like $1.08 a month, but it's actually billed every 4 weeks, so it's still $1 a month, but that's getting a little bit into the weeds. The point is that it's a great sale, and it's a great opportunity to try the Epoch Times for pretty much no commitment. You can cancel anytime if you're not satisfied, but the idea is to get you in the door and to get you to fall in love with the Epoch Times, to make it part of your life, to have you read the articles, read through the infographics, watch all the episodes of my show and all the other shows on there, so that you fall in love with the Epoch Times and be a subscriber for a long, long time to come, years, perhaps even decades. So if you want to take advantage of this awesome sale, the link will be right there at the top of the description box below. You can just click on that link. It'll take you to the sale page where you can try the Epoch Times for, again, just 25 cents a week for 6 full months. And I hope you click on that. I hope you take advantage of that sale, and I hope that you join us over at the Epoch Times, where we have a ton of great content. And then, until next time, I'm your host, Roman from the Epoch Times. Stay informed. Most importantly, stay free.